Hi there, welcome to today's first episode of my 10-minute moan. And the topic of this 10-minute moan is even more details about the horrendous cover-up of the SNP government, where they tried to hide details of the Alex Salmond inquiry, and even after being taken to court and the Court of Session demanding the released documents, the public still haven't had access to them, and further FOIs have since been heavily redacted as well. So the story I'm going to talk about is in today's Scottish Daily Express by David Walker, and his headline is "Secretive SNP Government Refused to Publish Legal Advice Behind the Block on Releasing Hidden Nicola Sturgeon Report." An exclusive, the Scottish Government suffered a humiliating court defeat last year in an attempt to keep James Hamilton's report on the former First Minister private, and now refused to publish the legal advice behind more attempts to stonewall the publication. Now, this story has been ongoing for quite some time, where a member of the public made some FOI requests to get Judge James Hamilton's findings in full. And the story's roughly discussed throughout this article. So I'll read the article out and I'll give you some extra detail to fill it out once I've read it. So anyway, the secret Scottish Government has refused to publish the legal advice it got, once again failed to publish the full report into Nicola Sturgeon's behaviour during the investigation into sexual misconduct allegations about Alex Salmond. James Hamilton garnered witness evidence to help him decide whether she breached the ministerial code. A special Holyrood committee probed the mishandling of the SNP Executive's investigation into the former First Minister, which was later found to be biased. During Ms Sturgeon's appearance, she failed to tell MSPs about a meeting she had with his advisor, Geoff Aberdein, in her office. That led to a vote of no confidence in the long-serving SNP leader, as well as referring herself to the independent ministerial code advisor, Irish lawyer Mr Hamilton. He concluded that she did not breach the code, but said she had given an incomplete narrative of events, adding it was up to the MSPs to decide if she'd misled Parliament. Which is a bit contradictory, because the whole thing about the ministerial code is you don't mislead Parliament. So he's saying she didn't she didn't break the code, but it's up to the MSPs to decide if she misled Parliament. And that was about all we heard from the Hamilton report. And Sturgeon often said, an independent inquiry said I hadn't misled Parliament. Well, it kind of didn't, right? And a member of the public thought, I'd like to see this whole inquiry. And it started a whole series of FOIs and asking for more information. And eventually it went to the Court of Sessions in Edinburgh. And after about 32 seconds of deliberations, the lawyers said, you need to give out more information, which they haven't. That's the whole point of the story. The committee found that she had unknowingly broken the rules, but she survived a key Holyrood vote to remain as First Minister. Ever since the dramatic events in 2021, a secrecy battle has been fought over the full version of Mr Hamilton's report, with the Scottish Government refusing to publish it. This culminated in an embarrassing court defeat by the SNP after the Scottish Information Commissioner took them to court after ruling that officials did hold the information asked for. It took the judges a matter of seconds to rule in favour of the watchdog at a cost of £30,000 to the taxpayer. But the government once again withheld the data asked for, following numerous more freedom of information requests, relying on a loophole which states disclosure of the evidence would likely deter individuals from providing free and frank evidence in such investigations in future. Well, I would like to call BS on that, because when you take part in an inquiry, you're legally and morally obliged to give the truth. Whether that's free and frank, well, so be it. But that's just part of your job when you're asked to go in front of an inquiry. So to hold information back by suggesting that it would deter others from providing free and frank evidence going forward doesn't really matter, Because if 2 years from now somebody else is asked to give evidence in inquiry, they're duty bound and legally bound to give truthful evidence in inquiry. And these inquiries should be in the public domain. And to use this defence is quite frankly wrong. Anyway, the Scottish Daily Express used the same freedom of information laws to ask for all advice and internal correspondence about the decision to block the release, and were handed a number of emails which showed that Shona Robinson and Chief Advisor Colin McAllister were both asked to approve the refusal. Okay, so the people dealing with FOI have written to this Chief Special Advisor, Colin McAllister, and Shona Robinson, who is on the Cabinet, to approve this refusal to release information. Remember, the previous Information Commissioner stated that the SNP Scottish Government's Freedom of Information arm was not fit for purpose. Because it should be quite obvious. You shouldn't need to ask anybody for approval to refuse anything. You've got guidelines there which are quite simple. However, can be interpreted differently. Anyway, but the juicy aspect of the correspondence, i.e. the legal advice about whether the government were allowed to once again not publish the information, was completely redacted. Officials wrote an exemption under section 36(1) of the FOISA applies some information requested because it's covered by Scottish Ministers' legal professional privilege, which is strange because Scottish Holyrood, the Scottish Government in Holyrood, we're told often, does not have any parliamentary privilege. But now we're being told Scottish ministers have a legal professional privilege, which seems a bit contradictory. However, we recognise that there is some public interest in release as part of an open and transparent government and to inform public debate. However, this is outweighed by the strong public interest in maintaining the right to confidentiality of communications between legal advisors and clients, to ensure that ministers and officials are able to seek and receive legal advice in confidence like any other public or private organisation. And I kind of understand that as a particularly iffy bit of legislation because you are allowed that as a member of the public, but we're talking about public servants here. Remember, we sometimes get it around the wrong way, that these people in Holyrood and indeed Westminster are serving us as the people. So they should be expected to be even more transparent than any normal person because of the role that they've took, the high wages that they receive and the responsibilities that they accept. Yet, when things get a bit difficult, they put their arms around and say, we need to protect this information, which is a bit strange. SNP rebel Fergus Ewan was leading the charge for the government to fully publish this document and has also called for parliamentary privilege to extend to Holyrood to allow details about the Salmond scandal to be said without fear of legal action. Tory MP David Davis used Westminster's privilege to name Ms Sturgeon's former Chief of Staff, Liz Lloyd, as the person who allegedly leaked the details of Salmond's alleged sexual misconduct to the press. So, what can we take out of this? Well, what we can take out of this is it's just a more secretive government than we thought yesterday. And we just keep finding out each day that the SNP, unless you're Liz Lloyd, who was an advisor to Sturgeon, they decided they'd like some information in the public domain about Salmond's alleged sexual misconduct. So they decided to give that to the press. But when members of the public ask the government for other information, we're not allowed that. We are being governed in Scotland by a charade of a political party. This is not a political party. This is a gang who their sole determination in life in 17 years of running the Scottish Government has been to, they're not actually doing that to be honest with you, but the perception of trying to achieve independence for nationalists in Scotland. And everything else isn't important. being a good government is not important. That's there in black and white. Only the most cultish of their cult members would refuse to accept that. And they've got to change. The SNP must either be bankrupt before now in the next Holyrood elections in 2026, or slaughtered again at the polls, as they were so successfully down in Westminster. Because we need to have a country, so we need to have a parliament in Scotland that can actually govern and can actually take the book of devolved powers and abuse them, not just use them, but totally abuse them for the benefit of Scotland. But what we've had for 17 years is a party whose only desire is to create a bad Scotland, to paint it in a bad light and tell everybody we would be better being independent. And then when the blame culture starts, they say it's Brexit's fault, or it's Westminster's fault, or it's Tories' fault. And as of, once they return to Parliament, that'll be changed to it's Labour's fault, because that's how they govern. And the people of Scotland deserve so much better. We do. We need big change. And I'm not talking about swapping it for one traditional party for another, because as we've seen down in Westminster, that changes nothing. What we need in Scotland is a complete overhaul of the type of people that we send to Holyrood. It's the only way we'll change this. If we do the same as we've done yesterday, we'll get the exact same result tomorrow. So now is time for change. Now is time for people to consider voting for smaller or newer parties and independents, and fill that place with people who can put their hand in their heart every day and say they're going in there to serve the people of Scotland better than the people that have for the last 17 years. Apply common sense and logic and look after Scotland's interests, and make Scotland better with the book of devolution, the rules within that book of devolution, and actually wring them out, abuse them, take every little single shred of power out of it and use it for the benefit of Scotland, because we've not seen that for 17 years. And what do I want? I would probably want, ideal for me, would be some new party to come about and just run the place. But in failing that, a coalition of some sort, where we don't have radicalism. It's impossible to have radicalism, because the two parties, or three parties even in a coalition, which would be pretty bizarre, but are actually going to do what's best for Scotland. And it'll be somewhere in the middle, as it often is. Because Scotland's been polarised on every aspect since the advent of the independence referendum, where everybody was expected to declare where they were on two sides of a 180-degree spectrum. That's got to change. We need to stop talking about independence. Bar the name independence for 5 years of Parliament. Bar the notion of unionist and nationalist, when the true fact is the majority of Scots are somewhere in the middle. And do everything in our power to make Scotland a better place than it has been in the last 17 years, regardless of how you view the Constitution of the United Kingdom. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you've not already done so, please hit the subscribe button. But most importantly of all, unless you're any of these people named in this article, you're Liz Lloyd, you're Nicola Sturgeon et al. Everyone else, have a great day. Cheery bye now.